Before we can understand the consequences of a moon that suddenly glows 10 times brighter, we need to understand what the moon actually is and why its brightness matters so much to Earth.
The moon doesn't produce its own light. What we see at night is simply sunlight reflecting off its surface. Normally, only about 12% of that sunlight is reflected back toward Earth, a property called albedo. But imagine something changes that reflectivity. Imagine the lunar surface becomes intensely bright, almost mirror like, or begins emitting its own light due to some unknown cosmic event.
Suddenly, the moon becomes not just a gentle night companion, but a blinding celestial spotlight. Scientifically, this scenario is fascinating because the moon controls far more than our tides. It stabilizes Earth's rotation, it affects animal navigation, plant cycles, human hormones, and even weather patterns. Increasing its brightness by 10 times wouldn't just make nights brighter, it would rewrite the rules of how Earth functions. In this video, we're going to explore what immediate physical changes would happen, how ecosystems, human bodies, and global systems would react, what long term planetary transformations we might face in the podcast, and whether humanity could adapt to this extreme new reality. This is one of the most shocking what if scenarios imaginable, not because it destroys Earth instantly, but because it changes everything we rely on without warning. So now that the stage is set, as days turn into weeks with moon glowing 10 times brighter, the second major consequence begins to unfold, and this one affects the entire planet. The world's natural systems start shifting in strange and unexpected ways. The first signs appear in the oceans. Because the moon controls Earth's tides through gravity, many people assume brightness has no role in tidal behavior. But brightness does influence countless biological systems linked to the tides. With nights now permanently illuminated, marine life that synchronizes its reproduction with the lunar cycle becomes confused. Coral reefs, for example, rely on very specific moonlight levels to coordinate massive spawning events. A sudden jump in brightness would cause these events to become mistimed or fail entirely, harming species that have followed the same rhythm for millions of years. On land, plants begin reacting strangely as well. Many species depend on long hours of darkness to trigger blooming, release scents, or close their petals for protection. With the night now resembling an extended sunrise, plants that require dark periods would begin to malfunction. Some might stay partially open when they shouldn't, burning more energy than they can afford. Over time, crop yields could drop, affecting food supplies in subtle but increasingly noticeable ways. Humans begin feeling the environmental shift too. After weeks of disrupted sleep, the population experiences widespread fatigue. Crime patterns shift, as the brighter nights reduce hiding spots but also increase restlessness among people who can't adjust to the new lighting conditions. Energy consumption changes in unpredictable ways. Outdoor lighting becomes almost unnecessary, but air conditioning use increases because the world feels perpetually active, keeping people awake longer and raising electricity demand. The strangest effect, however, appears in the atmosphere. More light bouncing off Earth's surface means more energy being absorbed by the lower atmosphere, ever so slightly disrupting temperature patterns. Nights become warmer, and heat waves may last longer. In some regions, fog and cloud formation begin behaving differently because the permanent moonlight interferes with the cooling processes that typically happen in darkness. What started as a simple increase in brightness is now spiraling into a chain reaction, slowly reshaping ecosystems, weather behavior, and even human society. Imagine this: it's 2:13 a.m. You wake up not because of a noise, but because your room is glowing. Not dimly like normal moonlight. No, this is bright. Unnaturally bright. Your walls look like someone switched on a stadium floodlight outside your window. You rush outside and then you see it. The moon is burning. Not literally in flames, but shining, glowing 10 times brighter than anything you've ever witnessed. It's so bright that shadows stretch across entire city streets. Car alarms begin to blare. Birds start chirping wildly, completely confused. People step out of their homes, shielding their eyes, staring upward in disbelief. It feels wrong. Too bright, Stolly wrote. Too close. Too unnatural. Astronomers around the world start sending out emergency broadcasts. Do not look directly at the moon. Use protection. The light intensity is unsafe. The night sky is gone, completely flooded with pale white light. Stars vanish, darkness disappears. The world is stuck in a strange new twilight where night no longer exists. Ocean tides begin acting strangely within hours. Animals that depend on darkness panic. Nocturnal creatures freeze. Predators lose their advantage. Entire ecosystems pause, confused, disrupted. Human sleep cycles break instantly. Insomnia spikes across continents. Hospitals fill with people reporting headaches, dizziness, and anxiety, all triggered by the sudden, overwhelming brightness. The world has changed in an instant. And this is only the first hour. What would happen next if the moon suddenly began glowing 10 times brighter than ever before?
Das ist schon nice.
Could we survive? Before we dive deeper into this mind bending scenario,
Now,
please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your question below. When the moon becomes 10 times brighter, the very first major consequence is immediate and unavoidable. Earth loses true darkness. Nights would no longer feel like nights. Instead, every corner of the planet would be drenched in a pale glow similar to the light levels you'd see just before sunrise. This constant twilight would quietly and quickly begin reshaping life on Earth. For humans, the effects would strike fast. Our bodies depend on darkness to release melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. With so much extra light pouring into bedrooms, streets, and cities, melatonin production would crash almost instantly. People would struggle to fall asleep, wake up repeatedly, and feel mentally foggy throughout the day. Within just a few days, entire cities could experience widespread insomnia, irritability, and stress. Hospitals might see a sharp rise in anxiety attacks, migraines, and sleep related disorders as the world tries to adjust to the relentless glow. Animals would suffer even more dramatic consequences. Nocturnal species that rely on the cover of darkness, like bats, owls, wolves, and countless insects, would suddenly lose their natural environment. Predators would find it harder to hunt because their prey could now detect them far more easily. Prey animals, constantly exposed, would live in a state of heightened fear, scattering unpredictably and disrupting long established patterns of feeding, mating, and migration. Creatures that navigate by the moon, such as sea turtles, migrating birds, and many marine animals, would become confused and disoriented. Their internal navigation systems depend on the brightness and angle of moonlight. A 10 times brighter moon would overwhelm those signals, causing animals to travel in the wrong direction, fail to reach breeding grounds, or become vulnerable to predators.
Even ecosystems in the ocean would be affected. Moonlight penetrates the upper layers of seawater, and increasing that glow would alter the delicate movements of plankton, crustaceans, and fish that rise toward the surface at night to feed. An imbalance in these movements could ripple upward through the entire marine food chain.
All of this begins within the very first nights. Just the loss of natural darkness alone would trigger the first wave of ecological and psychological shock across the planet. As months pass with the moon shining 10 times brighter, the long term effects on Earth become undeniable. The initial chaos in ecosystems now grows into more permanent changes. Animals struggle to adapt to the unending glow. Nocturnal predators may decline in population, while prey species that rely on darkness for safety become more exposed and stressed, which eventually weakens entire food chains. Migratory patterns of birds and marine life are permanently disrupted, causing breeding failures and population drops in species that have existed for millions of years. Some organisms may go extinct if they cannot adjust to the constant light. Humans face unprecedented challenges as well. Chronic sleep deprivation becomes a global health crisis, increasing rates of heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline. Agriculture struggles to adapt. Crops that rely on dark periods fail to grow properly, threatening food security. Even our technology dependent society feels the strain as solar panels receive an unnatural amount of reflected moonlight, subtly affecting energy calculations and climate models. The environment itself begins to shift in unexpected ways. Permanent moonlight slightly warms the Earth at night, altering weather systems and regional climates. Ice at the poles may melt faster during night periods that no longer offer the cooling effect of darkness. Ocean currents could change subtly as marine life shifts, influencing global climate over time. Cities may become almost permanently illuminated, altering urban planning and energy usage patterns. Perhaps the most extreme consequence is psychological. Humans, like animals, rely on darkness for rest and mental restoration. Constant exposure to bright nights changes social behavior. Sleep deprived populations experience higher aggression, lower productivity, and mental health challenges on a scale never seen before. In the most imaginative sense, life on Earth does not necessarily end, but it is profoundly transformed. Species must adapt or perish, ecosystems must rebalance, and humanity must confront a new reality where the moon is no longer a gentle nighttime companion but a relentless, blinding force. The world we knew becomes a planet of perpetual twilight, where survival depends on how quickly we adjust to this new cosmic light. In summary, if the moon suddenly began glowing 10 times brighter, the effects on Earth would ripple through every corner of life. Nights would disappear, throwing human sleep cycles and animal behaviors into chaos. Ecosystems would destabilize as predators lose their advantage. Prey species become stressed and migratory patterns are disrupted. Plants that rely on darkness to thrive would struggle, causing long term consequences for food chains and agriculture. Even the oceans would feel the change, as marine life responds to unnatural light and altered tides, slowly shifting the balance of underwater ecosystems. Humans would face a relentless barrage of health challenges, from chronic insomnia to stress related illnesses, while our technology, cities, and energy use adapt to a planet that never truly sleeps. Weather patterns and regional climates could be subtly but persistently altered, and entire environments may slowly transform under constant moonlight. The world would remain habitable, but life would be forced to adjust to a new rhythm where darkness no longer exists, and the natural cues we have relied on for millennia are erased in an instant. Ultimately, this scenario reminds us how finely balanced Earth's systems are, and how even a seemingly small change in something as familiar as the moon can create dramatic, cascading consequences. Life on our planet is resilient, but it is also fragile in ways we rarely consider. A 10 times brighter moon would not just light up the night, it would rewrite the rules of survival, adaptation, and coexistence on Earth. As you look up at the moon tonight, remember even the most familiar sights in our sky hold the power to change our world entirely.